You've definitely heard that phrase, right? The ghost in the machine. It pops up in movies, in music, and yeah, it's all over the conversation about AI right now. But what does it actually mean? And where in the world did it come from? Well, it turns out that simple phrase is a key to a centuries-old debate about what it even means to be human. And that debate is more urgent today than it has ever been. So let's dive in. This is right from the heart of the 1995 sci-fi classic, Ghost in the Shell. And it's not just sci-fi, is it? It cuts right to the core of who we are right now in a world where that line between human and technology is just getting fuzzier by the second. It's the perfect place for us to start. Okay, so the world of Ghost in the Shell is this near future where cybernetic upgrades are totally normal. People are swapping out limbs, their eyes, even pieces of their brain. The story's main character, Major Motoko Kusanagi, is an agent whose body is almost entirely artificial. All that's left is her brain. And that forces her, and us, to ask a pretty heavy question. What part of her is still her? To try and answer that, the film gives us this idea of the ghost. Now, this isn't some spooky spirit. It's supposed to be the essence of a person. You know, their consciousness, their self-awareness, their soul, if you want to call it that. It's the part that's supposed to stay put, even when the physical shell gets replaced. It's the you, inside of you. But here's the thing. This whole idea of a ghost being separate from its shell wasn't just made up for the movie. No way. The phrase has this surprisingly deep history that takes us on a journey from cyberpunk Japan all the way back to the halls of 20th century philosophy. That's right. Long before Major Kusanagi was having her existential crisis, philosophers were wrestling with the exact same problem. What is the real relationship between our minds and our bodies? So let's just trace this idea backward for a second. We've got Ghost in the Shell in 1995, which takes its name from a 1967 book by an author named Arthur Koestler. But get this, even Koestler was borrowing the phrase. He got it from the guy who actually coined it almost 2 decades earlier, a British philosopher named Gilbert Ryle. But to really get what Ryle was even talking about, we have to rewind even further, all the way back to the 17th century, and one of the most famous thinkers in history, René Descartes. He's the one who really set the stage for this entire conversation. And this slide right here, it lays out the whole conflict perfectly. On one side, you've got Descartes. He argued for something called mind-body dualism. He basically believed that the mind, our thoughts, our feelings, was this non-physical ghost that was just kind of piloting the physical machine of our body. But then, centuries later, Gilbert Ryle comes along and calls this a category mistake. For Ryle, there is no separate ghost. The mind isn't a thing, it's just what the brain does. It's a behavior, not a being. So Ryle actually came up with the phrase as an insult, a way to poke fun at Descartes' theory. But the name was just so cool, so evocative, that it took on a life of its own. It broke out of stuffy academic circles and found a new home in pop culture. The first big jump happened in 1967. Arthur Koestler uses the phrase for his book title. Now, Koestler was pushing back against these scientific ideas that he felt reduced humans to, biological robots. He totally reclaimed the ghost in the machine to argue that our consciousness was something way more complex and profound than just a meat machine. And this is how you know an idea has really made it. 14 years after Koestler's book, the rock band The Police drops their iconic album, also called Ghost in the Machine. Sting, the frontman and, fun fact, a former English teacher, was super inspired by Koestler's ideas, and he wove them right into huge hits like Spirits in the Material World. So just think about that journey. A philosophical insult becomes a book title, which becomes a rock album, which inspires a sci-fi masterpiece. But the story doesn't stop there. Because today, this old debate has moved from the philosophy classroom straight into the engineering lab. The rise of AI is forcing us to confront the ghost in the machine all over again. So what is the actual difference? Well, for starters, our intelligence runs on wetware, squishy biological neurons. AI runs on hardware, cold, hard silicon. We learn from just a few examples, right? A kid sees one dog and pretty much gets the idea of dog. An AI needs to see millions of pictures of dogs. But honestly, the biggest difference might be this. We generally understand why things happen. AI is just unbelievably good at spotting patterns of what happens. It's correlation, not causation. And that brings us to this crucial point. For us, the ghost and the machine, they're inseparable. Our consciousness isn't some bonus feature that just pops out of the system once it's complex enough. No, it's a fundamental part of the system. It's woven into our very biology. This really gets to the heart of it. An AI can write a beautiful poem about feeling sad, but it doesn't actually feel sadness. It can identify the color red in a photo with perfect accuracy, but it doesn't have the subjective experience of seeing red. That internal, private awareness is what philosophers call qualia, and right now, there is zero evidence that any machine has it. But hold on, because here's the final twist in the story. While we've been so busy looking for the ghost in the AI, we've been plugging more and more of the machine into our own human experience. The debate isn't just about robots anymore. It's about us. We all do this every single day. It's called cognitive offloading. Anytime you let your phone remember a phone number for you or use GPS to get somewhere you've been before, you're delegating a mental task to an outside tool. We've basically created external digital pieces of our own minds. And look, this comes with some serious trade-offs. On the one hand, it's incredible, right? We free up our brain space for bigger thoughts, and we have all of human knowledge in our pocket. But on the other hand, are we weakening our own internal memory? Is trusting an algorithm to tell us what to watch or read eroding our ability to think for ourselves? And are we losing the battle for deep focus in a world that's literally designed to distract us? Here's a thought. As machines get better and better at all the analytical stuff, the things that make us uniquely human suddenly become more valuable than ever. The skills of the future, they might not be about processing data faster. They might be about the things machines can't do. Truly understanding how someone else feels, making a tough ethical call, and connecting with people on an emotional level. And that brings us right back around to where we started. The ghost, the shell. The human, the machine. In a world where our minds are literally extended by technology, where our lives are guided by algorithms, that old philosophical question is now a deeply personal one. So, what's the ghost that defines you?